Good morning, everyone. I think very glad to come back with you guys on the second edition of the second episode of the Industry Connect series that we have started. We're going to take your time for just about 30 minutes. We are really happy to have Mallika Vyas, who is head of HR for Tata Capital. She has had an illustrious career. She's been in financial services as well before. She's worked with Tata Consulting Engineers. So I think, just the kind of person that I would like to have in this connect. And we are focusing on financial services. Financial services have had huge contribution over the last decade or so as one of the key drivers of employment growth in the services sector. And that's why very important to kind of have her amongst us to kind of share that now that we are I don't know, it's very difficult to say which phase of pandemic we are in. We don't know whether we are at the beginning or the middle or the end of it, but anyway, I think we all know that we now have to get on with life, making peace with the fact that pandemic is here to stay, or the COVID is here to stay. And in spite of all of that, what has been the impact on the financial services sector? What are the kind of green shoots that we should be excited about? What are those positive insights, or what are the realistic insights that we need to be preparing ourselves for? Thank you so much, Mallika, for sparing your time to do this.
Thank you so much, Rituparna, for having me to share, and very happy and glad to do it if it gives some insights. We've had an exciting 6 months and interesting, growing, unlearning, relearning. So
Yeah.
it's been a journey for us.
Good. I think, why don't you, just taking that forward itself, if you could just share with all of us in terms of what's your assessment of the current situation, and how do you think it has impacted the financial services industry? And maybe you could also tell us about specifically your organization.
Yeah. So financial services, let me put it, was anyway seeing a bit of a downturn with various events that happened in the last fiscal year. And even then, being Tata's and having strong shareholders, Tata Sons is our holding company. We had complete support, and there was no turbulence in our business at any point of time, even when there was turbulence in the non-banking financial space. Uh, and came March and COVID. Yes, we did go on a standstill in the initial first month, but again, very quickly, that gave us time for our planning and preparations, and we took opportunity of the unlock where we came under, essential services, and we quickly, latched on to that and got back on our feet, and were back in the marketplace. And that has certainly given us advantage as of what we see in our numbers and how we've got back on track and uh, things. If I talk about last month's results, business results, we have already reached 80% of where we were as of last year. So we are raring to go, and we see, it's just an upward movement going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the most encouraging thing I've heard in recent times. And we must remind ourselves that shareholders don't pay salaries, customers do. And when you say that 80%, you've gone back to almost 80% of what you were last year around the same time, that of course means that there is a positive turnaround in terms of um, not just only revenues and businesses, but in terms of the outlook, in terms employment outlook per se. So are you seeing green shoots of certain profiles? Do you see the festive season, for example, reviving a bit of the consumer spending, and can that bump up your current level of revenue streams, which you're already, you're saying that it's already at about 80%?
Yes, it is. So we did see, we have seen deltas in the month when we had Ganesh Chaturthi, which is a festival celebrated across India, especially Maharashtra.
Right.
And we are seeing, we are expecting good business in the next month and a half with Dussehra and Diwali both round the corner. And the whole team has geared up to deal with it in kinds of products that we are coming up with, the process in which we can reach the product to the consumer, which is most important, because now the earlier processes have started becoming redundant or difficult to achieve, and these 6 months has given us the ability to have built a lot of digital platforms, not non-contact platforms, to reach the customer and provide services. And hopefully we'll see that implemented well and get our results as we desire to see. So I'll go to the second part of what you asked me about. Do I see? I see a lot of growth in the small ticket, kind of loans. I don't see the very large loans as of now picking up, but there will be a lot of work around and and the kind of products that will come around the small ticket loans. And we are already seeing that, say, in our personal loan business. There is already a pickup. More or less, we are close to the targets that we want to achieve in the personal loan space.
Okay.
And I also see debt management being extremely critical. And I'm using that word extremely critical because what we lend, we need to get back.
Right.
And I see a lot of growth. I see a lot of focus that we are giving that area. And I see that there'll be a lot of growth and opportunities in that area for people who, want to work around debt management.
Great. So I think you mentioned a couple of things. You mentioned that you do see spike in personal loans and small tickets personal loans, or any loans which are not too big in number. And the second, you mentioned about the importance of debt management as well. So now, these two phenomena, as well as maybe a lot of, like, even for example, the digital interventions that you mentioned a while back that you have done over the last 5-6 months. Now, the demand, the changes in your working environment, the changes in the way you have been acquiring customers and new businesses, what does all of this mean in terms of jobs? I mean, does all of this have any impact on jobs? Are you seeing increase in certain kind of jobs? Are you seeing some jobs will actually be less relevant? It would be really useful if you could throw some color on that.
I'll take it a little differently. What we have been actually equipping ourselves is breaking our barriers and boundaries. Right. So if you ask me, how did we start our first month? All of us sold health insurance policies. We were quickly trained, and that was what was there, the market's need.
Yeah.
An operations person was able to sell it, a credit person was able to sell it, an HR person was able to sell it, the sales person was able to sell it. Everybody had targets, everybody learned, and everybody delivered. So that was our first step, where we learned that we have to break our barriers, and we came up with this whole thing of synergies. We see that today, we don't want redundancies to come in, and some, like we said, some jobs getting less important than the others in this scenario, or because of productivity we finding redundancies built in. We are developing people to take on any role, so that wherever, for example, today a sales guy is getting equipped to do debt management.
Yeah.
So his relevance still exists for me as an individual in the role. So he does have his sales role. So if the sales numbers are not according to the earlier productivity, never mind. He's supporting the organization where I have a requirement of debt management. So we have gone right across, developing skills across people, so that any role that is required. So if you ask me, there is a huge optimism in the organization, because people are seeing they're being equipped to deliver. The training team got nimble footed and were able to start digital training on the 25th of March itself. We have done more than 6,000 hours of training and equipped. Surprisingly, people in the HR team have also got trained for debt management, moratorium calling. and we have also upskilled ourselves. So the silos, for the first time I saw breaking in the way. I've never seen them break like this, or I've never seen people not resist this kind of change. So like I said, so that's helping us get back. I see, especially the digital and the analytical space where we will see more hiring, tech management for sure. And those are the kind of areas. And I see less and less uh, redundancy in my system. So, which is important for me.
Right. So, what about the frontline roles and jobs that you've had? Do you think that because of customers' behavior changing in how they are making purchasing decisions, would that have an impact on frontline jobs?
I don't see it in the near future. Uh, so far, I feel their relevance is still there. They're still out in the market. Our feet on street are still, servicing, because everybody's behaviors have not changed. And
Right.
there are some people are comfortable and some are not. See, the digital journey has not started just now. The
Right.
digital endeavors, effort has been there for a long time, but no one has easily seen an entire cycle. Still,
Right.
people have requested for human intervention.
Right.
So that's going nowhere. I don't see it in the near future going anywhere till the entire cycle's behavior changes. So till then, everybody is relevant, and we are upskilling, changing our skill levels. So I see that if it's not done the way it's been done today, it will be done differently, but their relevance will remain.
So just to be just to throw some light on specific areas. Is there any one job role which were like, the requirement relevance was, there was like a moderate level of kind of requirements, but you suddenly feel that this is one job role which has become extremely relevant in today's time? Like, of course, you've spoken about digital analytics and technology, but where you think that Tata Capital as an organization would like to focus your energies in that area. Is there any such job role?
I think it's been for the last 2 years. See, for the last 2 years, we realized, because 50% of our costs come from manpower costs.
Yeah.
And if we need to push our productivity up and make the shareholders happier from the results that we give back to them, it was very, very important to have a digital journey. And so the endeavor was started a long while ago. Of course, when things go the old way, the resistance is always there to try a new way out.
Right.
But this way has taught us that this is, and actually, because these platforms existed, we were able to get back to business in the month of May. And I do a lot of calling along with our field force and check on them and this thing. And a lot of feedback is that they feel that the digital part of it has also supported them immensely in reaching back to the customer. Because customers for a long time have not been comfortable to be in direct contact with the field force.
Right.
So it's been like a combination of the two that has been working well for us so far.
So do you think that because of the pandemic, I mean, one, of course, before I even ask that question, one thing that has definitely set Tata Capital apart from a lot of the other organizations similar space is the way you have embraced outsourcing. I mean, how intelligently you have utilized outsourcing to kind of complement your business. But do you think that because of the pandemic, more and more organizations will be veering towards having less fixed costs and more variable costs?
Absolutely. I see that's the way it will go. And it also gives them flexibility of,
right.
expansions and contractions, including the kind of labor laws that all of us in this country are governed by. That will be a more flexible model to adopt to see how your growth supports you, and in turn support it with the manpower coming from an outsourced agent.
Excellent. And do you think that staffing has helped you in the sense, and as a financial services company, did you especially during the pandemic, the fact that you have some credible staffing partners, did that help you in this journey? And if would you recommend it to somebody else?
No, absolutely. And our the thing is, the partners I work with have imbibed the value systems I live by, and supported me. So I don't find that there is actually a differentiation in the workforce apart from the technicalities from the labor law perspective.
Right.
And I had to get certain things implemented. We had outsourced staff for being covered for medical insurances and things like that. And my outsourcing partners absolutely supported me, were able to cover people. So that gave confidence to the field force to be out there and that they were going to be taken care of.
Right.
And the most important, like I said, our value systems married.
Absolutely.
So it's seamless for me as of now.
Oh, I had to ask that question out of self-interest.
Yes, I understand. But you know how we are on feedback too. So
yeah, absolutely. And that's the honesty which makes this a partnership, and rather than it being a one-sided relationship.
And you know that the value systems have married, and hence we have this long relationship.
Absolutely. But tell me, Mallika, this is a question to you as somebody who has been leading human resource. That do you think leadership or leaders across organizations will be looking for now a specific set of skills when they decide to hire? And are those skills different from what it used to be in the past? This is the out of syllabus question for you.
Yeah, sure. I understand. And it's an interesting question, a thought-provoking one even for people like me in this profession. I think if you ask me what I saw in the last 6 months, it was like the potential existed. What one wanted to see in someone existed. The environment changed and people demonstrated it. So, for example, pre-COVID, if I told somebody go and move from your sales roles to support me in collections, I would have got a complete no.
Right.
Post-COVID, that was said, the guy before I could complete my sentence was out in the field. So if you ask me, traits like where you would have seen resistance to change, perseverance, resilience, those are the things one will want to change. I want to see in workforce, and not with rigid mindsets, flexible. So that gets us to where we want, like more like a stream. So the path is flown into rather than worked very hard. So I think leadership will need to see a field force or an employee force that is nimble-footed, resilient, optimistic, high on passion, boundaryless.
Right.
So I see that's what we are looking for people, and that's what we would want to see for our success.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I would like to encourage all our participants and viewers in both channels. I see we are live on Facebook today, so it's interesting. Please do send in your questions. Those who are on Zoom, there is a Q&A tab separately, so please pop in your questions there. And we have got about another 9 minutes to go. So meanwhile, I do have another long set of questions for Mallika, which I will keep on asking. I think what I wanted to also understand from you, I think you've touched upon the importance of digital analytics technology in human resource per se. How have you seen technology being utilized, and how have you leveraged technology to improve productivity within the organization from a human resource perspective?
Yes. I'll take that question. Interestingly, we did some work around, the entry and exit of the field force, and what were the triggers for any point of exit in the first 6 months, and understanding what was working to hold them, bind them to the organization, and what drove them out of an organization has helped us. We're on a path to implementation out of work around that, and I see we will see some results in that area.
Excellent. So now this is like one of those the elephant in the room kind of a questions. There is a lot that's going on in the economy. I mean, you're hearing every other day conversations on layoffs, wage cuts. We hear about furloughs and so on and so forth. In general, and this is not something which is in particular to Tata Capital, but do you think there could be an impact on wages in the short run? And if yes, in which direction?
I see an impact on wages and I see it downward, uh, considering again the story of demand and supply.
Right, right.
So if the supply is more uh, and the demand is less, economics work. So I do see, and I do see from the entire, everybody knows the GDP numbers and the growth numbers, and I mean, we're all part of creating those numbers.
Right.
So I do see a downward trend in wages.
Right.
We have been stagnant, but I don't see growth, including for the setup I'm a part of.
Right.
I see it going down.
Interesting, because some of the experts that I'm talking to have another reverse concern because of the reverse migration.
Right.
We have these, and even I've heard even in the NBFC sector that a lot of the kids who are in sales, for example, are not from the cities where they are working. They come from remote locations, and the moment the lockdown was announced, they all went back. And now that they're asking these people to come back to work and call letters are going, they are not coming back, and that is creating an artificial gap or scarcity, you can say, from a supply perspective. So do you think that that can impact wages, like where wages can go up in certain roles?
I would say more so in MSME sector and in the unorganized sector to an extent.
Right.
I'm not facing that challenge in an organized sector.
Okay.
So, and if you also say reverse, both those sectors where things went in the reverse direction, will see growth. Both the MSME as well as the unorganized sector.
Sure. There are a few questions which have come in from both Facebook as well as this. I think there's a question Deepa asked that I would like to know if an employee behaves stubborn and rigid manner and taking advantage of COVID situation where employer is not ready to fire employees. How can we mend such employees? No readiness to learn the required skills, no readiness for working. So I think it's an ideal question for an HR.
No, and it is part of what we live with. So we do, I certainly do. I also have a random sample of the population that forms a part of my workforce, and we do have such. So we work around more so in projecting futuristic. Being a Tata company, again, let me tell you, it's not easy to fire, and we don't believe in it either.
Right.
But we do believe in counseling, in coaching, in having growth paths explained, shown. But if that doesn't work, we also have the ability to disconnect ourselves with that employee. So it's not that I will let an employee who completely without reason doesn't support the organization's need, which marries in with his need. We certainly we do take action on such employees. But I find I've really had very little to deal with post-COVID, to be honest. I've seen so much more rigidity for change, location movements, function movements prior to COVID. I see post-COVID, I'm finding people, because what I understand from them, they've seen so much in an environment where there has been so much ruthlessness shown with employees from employers, loss of jobs, at a drop of a hat. They have high regard for what has been given to them, because their families also have been uh, having a voice to say that the Tatas has supported us in this scenario. So a lot of them are more open, and like I said about the flow and getting into the flow. So because I didn't have any resistance with that, I've made a lot. I've had over 300 for my population of say 2,500, I've moved around 300 people
Right.
during this last 5 months. Moved them from job roles to locations, and I've really not faced as much a challenge I would have faced 6 months ago.
Interesting. So I have to ask you this question because it's a very important diversity question. There is one section of people who believe that work from home has had adverse impact on women workforce participation. And there is another category of people who is saying that work from home has opened options for women. Which side are you in? Your thoughts on this?
So let me share with actual results that we have seen. I have only seen productivity numbers go up. In fact, if I take it across the organization and which we monitor month on month, my productivity numbers look better than that of last year.
Right.
Okay, in spite of this entire situation. Two is a lot of women who would go on sabbatical and not return to work because of constraints of managing a young child or an old parent have all come back to work.
Interesting.
So they're back in the workforce. They're supporting us to the extent everybody is supporting working from home. There is no difference. There is no change. So I've been able to attract back a set of people that I was losing out due to physically having to come to the work. So for me, this has worked better.
Fine. I mean, I'll squeeze in one last question before we kind of wind up today. And the question that has come up is on, the financial services have been an extremely traditional sector, right? While it's a services sector, it's also very traditional in nature, or many people believe so, whether it is true or not. Do you think that there could be increase in appetite to hire freelancers and gig workers in financial services? If yes, are there any specific job roles where you'll be open to hiring such people?
I think it's not an unheard thing. We have, of course, in very small numbers, but we have had people and like, for example, being a Tata company, we have a second career for women. And
Right.
a lot of women who want to practice flexi hours, and organization needs the kind of skill they bring along with them. So we have been hiring continuously from that kind of force. And even some of our, we do a lot of, projects and things. I may not want people full time or with a long term perspective. So there are people who get onto roles like that. But of course, they have been small. But in fact, I'll say this has led to some thinking, and this question has led me thinking, and to actually utilize and work around this would be an interesting idea for my organization.
Excellent. Great. I think we are right on time right now. It's about 1 o'clock. Do you want to have some closing remarks for all of us before we wind up?
I'll say that it was not only a one-way thing for me. The questions that you asked also have left me with some thoughts, some things for me to think about, and which probably will get me some interesting results. So it's been a very fruitful, engaging half an hour. I'm glad you had me on this show, and I'm glad I was able to, spend this 30 minutes with you. Of course, I'm not letting go here. I'm going to use you to bounce off a few more thoughts, and do send me such questions that help me think and maybe implement a few interesting things back in our organization.
Thank you so very much, Mallika. And I know for us, the format is very different. This is a conversational format.
Absolutely.
That everybody will benefit from. And I do it also for my selfish interest, because I get to also learn quite a bit about the way you are thinking. I mean,
right.
These as an organization, we are a net sum of the 67 industries that we work with. And we kind of end up becoming a voice of these industries when it comes to matters of employment or skills.
Right.
So, and given the best way to learn is to talk to people, talk to experts, and that's essentially what I'm leveraging here.
Absolutely.
We continue this industry dialogue series. I think this is just the second one we have done, and hope to pick up other exciting sectors in the next week's session as well. And Mallika, this is just the beginning. I will again connect back with you.
Absolutely.
Let's stay in touch.
Thank you.
Okay.
And wishing our partnership a long way to go.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Touch wood. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.